In today's video, we're going to compare the Sony FX3 versus the FX3 killer, the all-new red cinema camera, the Nikon ZR. We're going to test them in real filmmaking scenarios, dynamic range, low light, stabilization, and even trying the first red draw on a $2,000 full-frame mirrorless camera. And by the end of this video, we're going to find out if the Nikon ZR is actually an FX3 killer or the low light king is still undefeated. Starting with ergonomics. The Nikon ZR has this weird rectangular shape. It's not like every mirrorless camera we have. They have made a couple of them like the Nikon ZF and the ZFC that doesn't have a grip. A grip on the camera offers security because you know that you are gripping your camera with all of your hand and you're just sure that it will stay in your hand. But this body is horrendous. Who asked you not to add a grip? Look at this, my hand is empty. If you have a full frame camera, you should be very careful while holding it because they are expensive and this doesn't have a grip. I have to hold it either like my phone. It's the same way to hold a Nikon ZR as my iPhone. I'm putting my iPhone inside of this. And it's actually the same size. And you can see how I'm holding both of them in the same way. When I'm shooting on my phone, I usually hold it like this. And now I'm holding my professional cinema camera like this. It's not comfortable at all. Look, if you care about ergonomics, the ZR is not yours. You have to have a cage on it, to have mounting points, to have a grip, to have a good feeling of a camera in your hands. Other than that, I don't think this is yours. I don't think you should buy this camera. But let's talk about the FX3 actually, because it has the grip, it has the mounting points, and it has all the buttons that you need to customize. It has like 5 or 6 that you can set to whatever you want, while the Nikon ZR has only 2 buttons on the back and a joystick. You have these 3 mode dial buttons on the top. I don't like it. It's not practical. Why would you add a function button and not a menu button? Like if you want to go from the actual screen when you're recording, you want to change any of the settings to the actual menu and change any of your settings, you have to do 2 steps. The first one is pressing this button, which is the function button, and it will show you the main functions. Let me get closer to this camera. But if you want to go to the menu, you have to choose menu. You can either choose it using the joystick or you can touch it using the touch screen and then you'll go into the menu. While on the FX3, you can just press menu and you'll go into the menu. That's it. And there's also a dedicated function button for all the other functions. Also, I don't like the turn on button. Yes, it is fast, but it's as fast as flicking this switch and turning on the FX3. I like the huge screen. It's massive. Like, look at this compared to the FX3. I don't think that there's a comparison between these two. The Nikon ZR clearly wins, and I think this should be the standard in the next couple of years. Both of these cameras have 2 tally lights, the front one and the one on the screen, but the FX3 has 2 more tally lights, one of them on the record button and the other one on the back. If you're traveling and packing light, this camera is incredible. If you're having it on a drone or rigged to a car or something like that, it's a great crash cam, but I wouldn't use it as is if I want to shoot an event for a long period of time, because I actually took it to an event and it was hideous. Let's talk about low light. I tried low light on both of these cameras. The base ISO on the Nikon ZR is 800 and 6400, while on the FX3 it's 800 and 12,800. Both of them have the Cine EI mode. I just call it Cine EI because I'm used to that term on Sony, but it's basically the same. So you choose either the high base ISO or the low base ISO, so which circuit you're turning on in your sensor, and then you choose the ISO depending on it. I like this one a lot because 6400 and 800 is not big of a gap, while this one has a huge gap between 800 and 6400. If you're shooting in H.265, the denoise inside of this camera is good. It makes your footage a bit mushier. Even going up to 20,000 ISO, you can get a usable image, but it's not clean. While on the FX3 at 12,800, you'll get the cleanest image you can get in this range. If you're going from 6400 to 10,000, you'll get a bit of noise in your image, but if you're shooting at 10,000 on the FX3, it will be extremely noisy. But if you switch to 12,800, You just turn on the second base ISO, the second circuit in your sensor, and you would get the cleanest image you can get out of the camera. So I would always suggest shooting at the second base ISO and using an ND filter. 6400 is enough. I don't need to put ND filters in front of my lenses. While when I'm shooting on the FX3, I need ND filters. This is something to consider, but I think Nikon footage is a bit noisier than Sony footage. And I'm talking about RAW. RAW footage is noisy. You have to denoise it in post. You should not use RAW footage without denoise if you're shooting in low light. Some people would say that the 12,800 is not as clean as 800. I don't care. You're shooting at 12,000 ISO. You should have noise. This is a digital image and it should and will have noise. If I'm getting a crispier image, I don't care about noise. You cannot run away from noise. There is no digital image without noise. Now, I've tested the dynamic range in my own way. I just went out to a shaded area in a sunny day and we shot a couple of B-rolls when we tested the stabilization, which we'll talk about later, and the dynamic range. When you're shooting H.265, both of them will give you similar images. H.265 versus H.265, they're both the same. I wouldn't say one of them is better than the other. I'm not going to say that this has 17 plus and this has 16 minus dynamic range stops. I don't care about that. What I care about is that I got a good image out of both of them, a great dynamic range out of both of these cameras if you're shooting at H.264. When you're shooting RAW, you will get the best image you can get in the market right now. There's nothing that can beat this camera or a Jet 2 Holiday, because RAW allows you to change the settings in post, and you're also shooting in a higher bit depth. You're shooting 10-bit versus 12-bit. That's why I did not compare RAW versus H.264, because it's unfair. Now let's compare the resolutions. This shoots at 6K 60 with no crop, and this is 4K 120 with no crop. If you're shooting at 4K 100 or 120, you will get a crop on the Nikon ZR. On the Sony, you won't get anything. There's no crop in any mode or in any resolution, but it doesn't have 6K. This has 6K and the image quality is insane. But the file sizes, especially in RAW, are not that easy to deal with. They are not forgiving at all. And if you want to buy memory cards that actually allows you to shoot RAW for a long period of time, you have to invest heavily in SD cards. They are expensive. 512 gigabytes are not enough. My friend was generous enough to lend me his CF Express Type B and the adapter for Sony lenses, which I will talk about later, and it's not enough. I don't know. I'm just offloading this camera each and every single day. And with storage prices going up, you should know that it will cost you as much as the FX3 if you're buying new. Just calculate how much storage you need and how much processing power does your laptop or computer have in order to edit these footage. Now, before we talk about stabilization, I need to address overheating. There's nothing to worry about. This is the verdict. You don't have to worry, because I was offloading some footage from the camera using USB-C, which heated up the camera. So I connected it through USB-C to a power source to heat it up more and ran R3D RAW 6K until my memory card filled up. It overheated. It definitely did, but it didn't turn off. We'll also never show you that it's overheating, but it is overheating. This is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that it will never shut off and no one will turn on their camera and record when it's that hot. But it also raises concerns when it comes to the internals that are boiling inside of this. The internals are going to get damaged if you do it often. So I don't think that you should put your camera through this much stress. So I think we have to wait and see for a couple of years if any of these cameras will fail, or if they will just keep going like this and never fail. I think the sensor is one of the first things that will get affected, like there will be more noise or artifacts or something like that, but we have to wait and see. While the FX3 has an internal fan and you never have to worry about overheating. And finally, let's talk about stabilization, which is one of the most important parts because I do events and documentaries, so I need a good stabilization in my camera. Stabilization on the Sony camera is incredible. There's nothing in the market right now that can beat it. I think Lumix is on par with Sony, but if we're just comparing Nikon to Sony, Sony wins all the time. I have two identical shots that I took with the Sony and with the Nikon, and I think Sony is a tad bit better when it comes to stabilization. I did not use any VR lenses or optically stabilized lenses on any of these cameras. Did not run into any issues when it comes to stabilization, especially because we are adapting a Sony lens onto a Nikon camera, and I will talk about that later, so keep watching to see that. But this one, I think it's slightly worse than any Sony camera. I don't know if it's the weight, because it's small and it's really lightweight. That's why it causes more jitters. But I think the Sony system has a better stabilization, and especially because we're comparing a 5-year-old stabilization system with a 2026, let's say, stabilization system from Nikon. And on the new cameras, if the FX3 Mark II gets released, or if we're comparing the A7 IV or the new stabilization system on the Sony cameras, they have the dynamic active stabilization, which is a gimbal-like thing that you have inside of your cameras. I just threw away my old gimbal because it was broken, and I've never bought a gimbal again. So I think having dynamic active stabilization on a camera like this, especially for run and gun situations, would be better if you are going to shoot events, documentaries, or whatever, something that requires running gun and requires you to change lenses or zoom in and out more frequently. So if you shoot handheld, this is your friend. If you shoot on a gimbal, this is lighter, so it can be a better choice when shooting using a gimbal. Especially with the huge screen that it has, you don't need an external screen, and you can see your image or your framing even if you have your gimbal up high. Now let's talk about autofocus, or let's not talk about autofocus, because both of them have exceptional autofocus. The Sony lens had a couple of problems, but I think it's because of the adapter, not because of the lens, because it was incredible on the FX3. It was okay on the ZR. Native lenses on the Nikon ZR are incredible. The autofocus is really good on both of them, and especially if we have an FX3 Mark II, it will have the AI chip, which will enhance the tracking. If you use autofocus, both of them are good. If you don't, it wouldn't matter for you. And finally, I would want to talk about a couple of quirks in both of them. First of all, the SD card slot. It's next to the battery. Why would I have to open the battery door every time I need to remove my SD card? It's incredibly annoying, and this is like stuck right now. It's not that smooth to get out, and it uses CF Express Type B, and it also has only one SD card slot. This is a cinema camera. Only one card slot? Why would you do that? At least put two, for me to put at least 2 TB and 2 TB and not worry about changing SD cards or CF Express cards in the middle of the interview. I don't like having this in this position and having only one card slot. The other one is micro SD card, and I don't know who thought about adding micro SD card to a professional camera, but it's a bad choice, and don't do it again. On the FX3, you have two CF Express Type A / SD card slots, so it takes any of them, and you can add two at the same time. You can record to one of them, then switch to the other, or record simultaneously on both of the cards. This is the best choice for me, because if you're shooting a wedding, one of the cards broke, you have a backup instantly. So I would always choose the FX3 when it comes to SD cards or when it comes to storage. The second thing is that the file sizes coming out of the Nikon ZR, because they are raw, it will be huge. So I don't think that the price difference is that big of a deal when it comes to buying the Nikon ZR, because you need to buy the cage, a lot of memory cards and SSDs for you to run this camera and get the full potential out of it. When you are shooting on the FX3, you have H.264, H.265. Like, if you want to record ProRes RAW, you can buy an Atomos Ninja 5 and record to it. But I don't think that it's a big of a deal, because we got used to the image coming out of the FX3. Now, before we talk about the verdict, I want to talk about the adapter that I used to adapt Sony lenses on Nikon cameras. I used the Viltrox E to Z adapter. I borrowed it from my friend who was generous enough to lend it to me. He actually warned me that this lens would just disconnect from the camera. Last week, I took this camera to an event, and when I was shooting, the problem is that it never overheated, it never made any problems. The autofocus was incredible, but when I changed the lens, it stopped reading any lenses. It showed no f-stop, there's no contact between the lens and the body. I tried unmounting the lens, unmounting it from the adapter, unmounting the whole adapter, remounting it. I tried everything and nothing worked, and I don't know how it worked eventually. Attaching this adapter is fairly easy. You just go and attach this adapter to the front of your camera. Then you attach normally as you do any other lens. But right now, oh my goodness, oh my God, it happened. Okay, you guys, it actually happened. The camera did not read the lens. If you see there, it says F. That means it did not read the, I don't know, the contact points on the lens. So I can't get any information from the lens. So you have to detach it and attach it again, turn off the camera, turn on the camera and attach it again while the camera is off, then turn it on again. It did not work. I tried everything and I was shooting an event. I tried the other Tamron lens, which is the 17-28 that I'm shooting on right now, and it also got disconnected a couple of times. I had the Sony FX3 on the side, so I used it to continue shooting the event. I don't think this is a reliable solution if you have Sony ecosystem and you want to shoot on Nikon, and this is one of the issues that I faced when trying this camera. So the final verdict. Did the Nikon actually kill Sony, and am I switching back to Nikon? No, I'm not. At least not yet. For my work, for the things that I do, documentaries, events, weddings, FX3 is the king. If they release something like the FX3, this robust build, 2 SD cards, a full-size HDMI port, I would definitely switch back to Nikon, especially when having Red RAW available. RAW on a camera, on a consumer $2,000 camera, it's incredible. I'm not going to use it. The file sizes are huge. It's not for me. I don't have that much storage to store all of these files or to edit them. But if it doesn't give me all of the options that I actually need to rely on to make a living, I'm not switching back. This is the industry standard, and this is what I'm going to be using for the next at least 3 to 4 years. Did it kill the FX3? No, it didn't, but it made a huge competitor for Sony to take into consideration whenever they're making the new FX3 Mark II. So I think Sony should worry about the future of Nikon and Red. This is just the beginning. I think Nikon is up to something very big, and whenever they do, we're all switching back. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Give a thumbs up for this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and comment down below what you want to know about next, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.